as well. My name is Lauren Rodabat, and I'm the Marketing Manager at Gotham Technology Group. I'll be your host for today's session with Checkpoint. I want to thank you all for joining us. On the call, we've got Andrew Meyer, Gotham's Senior Director of Professional Services, and Steve Johnson, Channel Manager for Checkpoint, to walk you through today's content. Before we begin, I want to review a few housekeeping items. To start, the webinar will run about 30 minutes and will include a formal Q&A session at the end. We will be recording the webinar in listen-only mode, which just means you'll be muted for the entirety of the presentation to avoid outside interruptions. During this time, please feel free to use the chat window located on the bottom right of your screen to submit any questions throughout the presentation. Andrew and Steve will address them all at the end. So thanks again, everybody, for joining us. And Andrew, please feel free to get started.
All right, great. Thanks, Lauren. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our webinar. So we're excited today to host our good partner, Checkpoint, who's going to present on their latest releases in the mobility management space. Gotham's long been engaged in understanding the landscape of that market, understanding device and application management. We've seen a number of solutions come to market over the years that address those challenges in their own way. And as the market and the technologies evolved, it's really become apparent that mobile security, just like any other information security initiative, should really be a layered approach. And Checkpoint's really, a great company to kind of take us through that, right? While others have staked their claims as leaders in the market, we're really, really excited to have a true security partner bring this particular solution to market that really addresses mobility threats as only a true security company can. So without any further ado, here's Steve Johnson from Checkpoint to take us through it all. Steve?
Thanks, Andy. And thanks, everyone, for taking time out of what I'm sure is your very, very busy schedules. As Lauren says, this will probably go about 30 minutes, maybe a little bit shorter. But really, today's presentation is about debunking the myths of mobile security. A lot of this has to do with the specific products that some of you may already be using within your own organizations around traditional MDM, mobile device management products, or what's now being rebranded as EMM. But the reality is that these types of solutions are really focused more around device management and not addressing any of the new zero-day attacks that are targeting mobile phones and tablets. So this presentation, we're going to kind of go through and kind of highlight this, and at the end, I'm actually going to take my own personal phone that's running iOS 9.0.2 that's non-jailbroken, and we're actually going to do a live demonstration to show you what the risk factors are that are out there and how easy it is to hack a phone. But to start, we're going to talk about a few use cases throughout the presentation today. And the first was we had a large electronics manufacturer that had a large amount of intellectual property. And like many organizations, they had a very, very large, widespread use of bring your own devices. And this really came because employees, like many, want to be able to connect mobile devices and be more productive when they're outside of the office. And however, the CISO was not confident that these BYOD devices were as secure as many are led to believe, especially as it relates with this false sense of security that many of us have around Apple's iOS device specifically. And really, the CISO wanted to know, are their devices secure? Are they secure enough? So he actually turned to Checkpoint and said, come in, I want you to do an audit, a study of our environment. And we actually found some very, very interesting information about his organization. So much so that he now mandates that all employees utilize mobile threat prevention on their own personal devices in order to be able to gain access to corporate resources. What we did find in the study was that 4 to 5% of his mobile workforce actually suffered from a mobile infection. And really, what were the lessons that we could learn from this study that may apply to our own organizations, right? So what threats did they find? What types of employees do they typically have using BYOD? And really, what potentially could have been the business impact to the threats that were found during the study. So we'll take a few moments to kind of walk through some of those. The first thing that we found in the study with this electronics manufacturer was that they actually had an executive that suffered a man-in-the-middle attack while he was at a cafe using the free wireless. All right. So what are some of the things that a cyber hacker could do with a man-in-the-middle attack? Well, they could capture corporate emails, intercept VDI connections. A lot of organizations have moved to using virtual desktops to be able to allow their mobile device users better access to corporate resources internally. They also had a researcher that actually had a credential stealer on her device. So what could a cyber hacker do in these instances? Potentially steal the username and password associated with the VPN client that was also on the device. We'll talk a little bit more through some of the other use cases about this a little bit later on. And they could have also extracted data from the corporate applications installed on that device, looking at the cached information that is a lot of times stored as part of these applications on device. They also had a business manager who actually had a malicious application installed on his device. So what could a cyber hacker do in these instances? Well, they could have extracted emails and contacts, calendaring information, and they also could have actually activated the microphone, the video to take either streaming video or screenshots of the front rear-facing cameras. All right. The reality is, mobile threats are on the rise. We're seeing the sophistication of mobile threats at an all-time high over years past. In enterprises, with you have a 50% chance of having 6 or more mobile-targeted attacks in organizations that have 2,000 and more devices on their network from a BYOD perspective. And when you really think about that, that doesn't mean that we have to have organizations of 2,000 people, because a lot of times with the BYOD strategies that companies have employed over the years, it's not one device per user. Think about in your own instances, a lot of the times it's 2 or 3 or 4 devices per individual user or employee that you have. We also saw in the first quarter of the year more than triple the amount of malicious mobile applications that were detected over the previous quarter. And right now, with the latest studies, estimates are that there's 15 million mobile devices that are currently infected with malware. And if you look in very recent times, again, we've had this idea that most of the mobile attacks are occurring on Android devices, and that is partially true, but the attack landscape has changed dramatically for iOS devices as well, and you can see here in the timeline, this is just over the last year, with the last one that happened actually earlier this week, which is the YSpectre malware. All right. So let's take a look at, and we're going to be talking mostly around iOS, because again, everyone I think has this idea that Androids, because it has more of a quote-unquote open architecture, are probably more prone. So this is really to kind of focus in and show that iOS is not is also capable of these similar types of attacks. So if we look at the anatomy of the current iOS attacks that we've seen out there, jailbroken devices, right? Jailbroken meaning that you actually have multiple vectors of installing applications onto the device outside of the App Store. So these could be through the Cydia store, things like that, and it's not always done by the user. And these are not, these particular jailbroken devices are not always detected by MDMs, and there's some, at the bottom, some examples of some of the malware that have affected jailbroken devices. The other attack vector, which is becoming more and more prevalent, are iOS enterprise certificates. The common misconception is that you can only install an application on an iOS device that you get through the official application store. This is not true. Apple actually has two development programs, developer programs. They have one for the individual, but they also have another one that's called the enterprise developer. If you think about a lot of large organizations, they have internal applications that they're developing for their internal use only within a company that they don't want to publish through the official application store, right? And you think about this as well as it gives them greater flexibility in being able to push out updates to the applications without having to wait for Apple's very long and sometimes too stringent review policy. So with the enterprise developer accounts, they're allowed to actually use their own enterprise certificates to sign their own private applications that they develop for iOS and distribute it to an unlimited number of users. And this all happens outside of the official App Store. So this is actually becoming a very favorite way of getting malware onto devices outside of the traditional application store. And then the other attack vector that we see for iOS, which is very recent as well, a couple weeks old, is Xcode Ghost, where they actually infected the iOS development APIs for developers that actually build the application. So when they're building it with Apple's own tools that are now infected with malware, that they're able to inject the malicious code at development time, and then those get uploaded and are propagated through the official App Store. Right? So in a recent study of 900,000 devices, users of devices, almost 50-50 split between the two, you can see that, as I said earlier, there's a 50% chance for organization of 2,000 or more devices that they have six or more infected targeted mobile devices on their network as we speak. So if we look at the challenge for organizations historically, when we first started our BYOD initiatives, we were really concerned more about managing the device, managing the unmanaged, the devices of which you don't own, but we wanted to have some level of control for, mass deployments or configuration sets. So that's where MDM providers came out, like AirWatch, Good Technology, etc. Right? And then they've sort of evolved now to also contain some element of a secure container, an encrypted application that houses all of your corporate email. They've then just recently started evolving into application wrapping, so I can actually take corporate applications and wrap those packages within the secure container so that any of that data related to those corporate approved applications that access information inside of the network are actually, their data is not being stored on the root file system. It's being stored in the encrypted container. That's the application wrapping. And these are solving the data leakage prevention concerns. There are antivirus products, mostly on Android, that deal with antivirus for protections against known threats. And there's also the typical application reputation of whitelisting and blacklisting applications, right? So if I make as a company a stance against Angry Birds or things like that, I can actually use an MDM product to prevent users from being able to install certain applications. The problem is that it's very black and white, and there's no context around it to know, are these applications doing malicious things? Do they have malicious intent? And really, if you look at the MDM space, what they're missing is they're not looking at zero-day threats that are now targeting the mobile workforce. So today's security solutions around mobile device management leave huge security gaps. They're focused on mobile device management and for protections against known threats, not the unknown threats. Many organizations are investing lots of time and energy in sandbox solutions to actually emulate documents that are coming inside of their environments. Well, this is essentially what we're talking about, is doing this for applications that are being loaded onto your BYOD devices in the cloud. If you look at the industry as a whole, using sort of industry generic terms, we have, as we've talked about, the MDM and secure containers. We also have secure web security as a service solutions. such as Zscaler, which provides cloud-based content filtering. The challenge with this historically has been that while it's great for content filtering and extending your URL filtering policy to remote users, again, it's been met with a lot of resistance because the idea that a user's web browsing may be monitored or restricted on their own personal device has really been a non-starter for most organizations to make any kinds of investments in these solutions holistically. And then we have secure collaboration. Secure collaboration is basically using private cloud file sharing solutions or even using public cloud where maybe it's Dropbox for corporate or Box for corporate type of services, saying these are the ways that we will share data outside of the organization. The unfortunate part is none of these solution sets are focused on zero-day attacks. Mobile devices have proven to be very difficult to control because of the fact that the companies don't own those devices in most cases. It's less of an issue when you do own the device. And you can't control the individual's behavior. That's probably the most important piece of this, and we'll see in a couple slides. The idea that our security is based upon the end user doing the right thing is destined to fail. Because it's not, these solution sets historically are providing no protection, as I said, from zero-day or advanced attacks. So there's a couple case studies here that we'll go just generically to kind of walk through, and there's 3 examples here, and the one thing that they have in common is that they've all been breached recently over the past handful of years. All right. Home Depot and Target are very, very similar in other reasons besides just the breach, but it was how they were breached. They were both breached using a contractor that had remote access capabilities into their systems. And this is really where cyber criminals that are trying to target organizations are going after. They're going after the contractors or business partners that have probably more lax security. In the case of Target, it was an HVAC contractor that had remote access VPNs into Target to be able to actually manage the refrigeration systems for the Target stores. They compromised that person's computer, was able to pull their credential information for the VPN, and then that's how they were able to connect into Target and install software onto the point-of-sale systems. JP Morgan Chase also had a breach, but it was not from necessarily a business contractor. It was actually an internal employee that had a device that they used escalated privileges on both inside and outside of the network. So the case that I'm making here is just like we have trusted business partners, and that's the new attack surfaces, employees with bring your own devices are very, very similar. They're just as much a trusted business partner. You're allowing them some level of escalated access into your corporate networks through devices that you don't own or control per se. Everyone agrees that mobility is the new attack surface. It's the path of least resistance of getting into a lot of organizations because they typically are only having some level of device management, and we're not looking at any of the advanced threats. 82% of security professionals expect to see an increase in the number of mobile security incidences in the next year. And our most famous example of bring your own device is our own Hillary Clinton, Secretary of State. As any politician will typically do, what's good for the masses is usually not good enough for themselves, and they want to improve upon what's available for everyone else. So in Hillary's case, she improved upon bring your own device to bring your own server. So she hosted the mail server in her own house, which contained classified documents. And as I said earlier, if we're relying on the end users for ultimate security of our mobile devices, this is what we're up against. The typical user experience of loading, for example, an iOS application onto the device is they get pop-ups. You want to give this application access to your current location, with the GPS location. Okay, yeah. How about the camera? How about the microphone? And I'm convinced that no matter how many questions that we ask our end users before they load an application, they'll always hit OK, including if an application asks for access to their SOL. They just want the application installed. But what happens when cyber criminals get into these mobile devices? These are some of the examples of things that can happen. And we're going to show a couple of these examples in the demonstration at the end. So we're introducing a product called Checkpoint Mobile Prevention. So some highlights of this: it's the highest level of security available for iOS and Android that's focused on the zero-day threats. This is sandboxing for applications. We have full visibility into the applications and the device, monitoring it for malicious OS configurations, malicious things that applications may be trying to do to the underlying operating system. A very, very simple deployment and a transparent user experience, which I'll show you in a moment. So if we look at some of the examples, and another sort of story that I'll tell here, we have an example of a QR code. The problem with these is that we have no idea where this QR code, if I scan this with a mobile device, where it's going to take me. And it's very similar to what we see on social media. URL shorteners. We have to use them, or we use them as individuals because we have character limits, or we want to track who's clicking on our links to see how our social media is being seen throughout the world, to track the results. The problem with both of these technologies is as an end user, you have absolutely no clue where I'm going to take you. So mobile threat prevention from Checkpoint actually comes to us from an acquisition that we recently did of Lacoon Technologies. It's also an Israeli-based company. They developed this technology, and it's now part of Checkpoint. Lacoon actually comes from Greek mythology, for a guy that attempted to warn the city of Troy of the ruse of the Trojan horse, which is a pretty fitting name. And a few years ago, they were invited to the large RSA conference out in California to do a case study. And with that case study, they knew that they needed to be able to actually make a large impact. So like any kind of startup where we need high risk, high reward, they said, you know what, I know that when RSA has their conference, they're going to be heavily promoting that RSA conferencing app on mobile devices for both Android and iPhones. And we know that they're going to have QR codes on every possible easel stand, every piece of literature from RSA, inviting everyone to download it. So ahead of the conference, they went to both the Google Play and the iOS stores, and they downloaded the real versions of the RSA conferencing app, and then they side-loaded. Remember that the conversation that I had earlier about the attack vectors available on iOS? They used the enterprise-based certificate option of being able to side-load malware into the legitimate RSA application. And then they hosted it on their own web servers on the internet. Now the problem became is now how do I get users at a conference to go to my malicious website versus the official Play stores to get the clean versions of the RSA app? So they went to the conference, and ahead of that they printed out their own stickers of QR codes. And everywhere they went around the conference and they saw this QR code, they replaced it with their sticker. And as people scanned this, it would actually bring them to their malicious web server and download and install the RSA app with a side of malware. And when they started their presentation, they opened it up with showing the command and control server on the internet with a list of all of the compromised devices that they had gained access to because folks had scanned the QR code or clicked on links. All right. On the right-hand side, you'll see that all of the controls available to a malicious user. I just highlight a phone in the main pane of the server, and I can do things like turning the volume up, turning the volume down. I can actually turn the screen on. I can intercept calls. I can block text messages. I can intercept text messages. I can activate and record audio or video and use the front or rear-facing cameras. This is all so easy. It's what you see is what you get. And these types of tools are available as open source tools on the internet for anyone that even has a partial ability to be able to create malware targeting mobile devices. So I'm going to do a quick demonstration of the RSA hack. Let me just, it's going to take a second here, get my phone. This is my real phone. It is not jailbroken. It is running the latest version of iOS 9.02. And what you'll see here is that we set a very, very easy user experience. So I have Checkpoint's mobile threat prevention app installed on my system. And you can see from an end user, it looks extremely simplistic. It's showing me that I have no application threats on my device currently. And you can see just below that, it also sees that the Wi-Fi that I'm connected to with this device is not attempting to do a man-in-the-middle attack on my Wi-Fi connection. And then the bottom just shows you some status information of when it last checked in. So had I been at the conference and scanned the QR code, it would have brought me to the malicious website, where I would have learned more information about the mobile conferencing app. So for purposes of this demo, we've removed any kind of reference to RSA, and we've just made it a very, very generic mobile conferencing app. So we scroll down, and I just say, okay, I'm going to download for the App Store. I click on this, and it's going to ask me to install. Now notice that I'm not actually, from an end user perspective, I don't know if this is taking me to the App Store or not. It's just asking me to install. Okay, great. Now we've password protected this app because this is on the internet. So I'm just going to quickly authenticate here. And you'll see that it's actually loading. This is happening on a non-jailbroken iPhone, running the latest version. We'll let this finish loading. And we'll open it up, and you'll see that it's going to ask me all of the same questions that we saw in my example. And I'm just going to continue to hit OK and allow it to do whatever it needs to do. Now, since this is just a demo, it doesn't actually have a mobile conferencing schedule or anything like that, so I'm just going to click out of this. All right, so I'm going to show you what it looks like on a command and control server. So here on my screen, we're going to come in here, and you can see that my phone is already checked into the command and control server on the internet because I've downloaded the mobile conferencing app. And very easily, I'm going to collect and do a sampling screen or a sampling scrape of the metadata off of the device by just clicking this. And I'm actually going to also activate the microphone on my mobile device. So it's going to actually record about 20 seconds, again, just a sampling. And what it's going to do behind the scenes is once it says that it's finished, just because we like really simple usability things, it's going to actually email this to my corporate email, which you can see at the top is stevej@checkpoint.com, just so that I don't have to, it's just an easier piece. This could be uploaded to the malicious server and archived. There's a million different ways that we can retrieve this data. But for simplistic sake, we're just going to wait for the email to come in. So let's go back to my email. I'm going to log in, check my corporate email, and you can see that it's already sent me at 2:31. You see, look at this is just a sample of the data leakage from the metadata that it's extracted. So contact information, It has my GPS location, and even for better convenience, I could click on this link and it'll actually open up Google Maps to show my exact location. It's got all of my phone data, calendaring information, etc. In addition, it has also sent me the 20-second audio clip. I'm not sure if this will play over the WebEx. Yeah, so you can't hear this through the webinar, but it would play my 20 seconds of audio. All right. So what's happening in the background is you're going to see this update in just a second. We have, before I show this, what's happening in the background with this device is it's taking the applications, and if they can be found in the App Store, the official apps can be found in the App Store, the behavioral risk engine, which is in the cloud, will pull down those applications directly from the stores themselves. If it's an application that was side-loaded through other means that weren't through the official stores, or it's a modified version of a legitimate application that cannot be found in the cloud or in the official stores, the phone would upload those apps. And they're executed inside a sandbox solution inside the cloud, and it's monitoring all the things that it's attempting to do to the host operating system. It's also monitoring any of the network connections that it attempts to open, and it's going to assign it a behavioral risk score. All right, and then one of the things I want to stress here is that while we've talked about the fact that MDM solutions are not addressing the zero-day threat, this does not represent a replacement for your existing MDM. This is to work in conjunction with your MDM. So you can see some of the examples here in the lower right-hand corner of some of the major MDM providers that we currently do integrations with. So quite simply, I could actually have this product augmenting what I'm already doing with my traditional MDM, and we'll discuss in just a second here some of the benefits. So let's see what happened on my phone. We'll go back to this, and you can see that it's found a threat. If I look at the threat, you can see that it's detected that my mobile conferencing app is suspicious. So, or actually malicious, not suspicious. And it will give me, as the end user, information on how to remediate this threat. Now, obviously, we don't want to rely on our users to do the right thing. So what we can do is, in the integration of working with your existing MDM provider, our server would send an alert about this application to your MDM product if it was AirWatch or Good or any of the others, and would tell it to automatically remediate by removing this malicious application. So we're giving a lot more context and details to application whitelisting and blacklisting around what the security risk is of the applications that your users are loading, and being able to utilize the tools that you've already spent and made investments in. And obviously, it continues to do other things besides that. So some of the examples of the threat technologies that are built into this. Again, the example here is very much on advanced app analysis and the sandboxing. However, we're also doing the network anomaly detection related to these devices and host threat analysis as well. Now, in my example, we talked about the QR code, and maybe we wouldn't use those. I've never used the QR code in my own personal life, and maybe a lot of users haven't. But the question remains is, would you have, if your users within your organizations got an email like this, right? So this is an Amazon spam email calling all shoppers, and for a limited time, we're offering a 30-day free trial to Amazon Prime. To get started with your free 2-day shipping, just download the mobile Amazon app. So in the same way that we showed an example of taking the RSA conferencing app and sideloading malware and redistributing it, clicking this link would do exactly the same thing. So the question is do you have even one individual within your organization that might click on this link? That's what the risk is. So with that, I'll take any questions that we may have. One thing I do want to highlight, this product is very uncheckpoint-like. It's incredibly easy. It does not require an existing management infrastructure or anything like this. It's all cloud-based. So we can spin up evaluations of 5, 10, 15, 20 users, whatever you felt like you wanted to do to be able to evaluate the product set extremely easily. So if there's any folks on the phone today that are looking to do an evaluation of this stuff, we can light up the 30-day proof of concepts, 60-day proof of concepts. Please just shoot an email to jwhitman@gothamtg.com. And with that, I think we'll open it up to questions.
Awesome. Okay, thanks, Steve, and thanks, Andrew. That was great. We do have a few questions that came in, so I'm just going to field them over. And then just a reminder to the audience that if you do have any additional questions, feel free to use the chat log that you see at the bottom right of your screen. So the first question that came in is, does your product integrate with AirWatch?
Yes. AirWatch, Mobile Iron, and good technology. And we're always looking for additional, so I sometimes get the question about Mass 360, and if there's a demand there as well, we can certainly easily extend it to those additional solutions. But out of the box, absolutely, AirWatch, Mobile Iron, and good technology are there today.
Great. Okay, next question. Is this product available on Android and iOS?
Absolutely. They're both available through their respective stores, and essentially they're free client downloads. And what we're doing, the management server aspect of this is actually where the money piece is. But it's extremely price competitive.
Great. And then can you talk a little bit about how it's licensed?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's licensed by user or by device. So some organizations, they want to do one license per device because they have a very, very small small deployment of users for very small companies. Others, where they know that users have multiple devices, it's more cost if we can do a per user license. And that license actually allows any single user to provision the client on up to 3 devices included with the base license.
Awesome. And then I have got a question about how to eval within companies, and I think you sort of touched on this a little bit, but if you want to just back that slide up to show the contact information one more time so everybody's got it.
Shoot a quick email to Jay Whitman. We'll follow up with you very quickly. Again, it's a very simple process because the management is all web-based, and I did forget to show you all the management interface, but here's an example of how it looks to manage it through the web. If I click on the app analysis, you can see lots of detailed information. I can see how many users have this particular version of Uber. I can learn about the app, and quite interesting, it shows us a summary of the capabilities that the app attempts to use on the device. And as we scroll down, you can see that it's also profiling all of the addresses, IPs, and ports and protocols that app actually reaches out to. So we can provision this cloud-based management extremely easy. And in terms of evaluating it, it's literally as simple as adding devices, having it send an email to provision, and the user just clicks, and it will automatically configure the app after it downloads to talk to your management server interface. Very simple.
Great. I've actually got another one here.
Okay.
Is the solution just software on a phone connecting to cloud server? What else is required in the deployment?
Sorry, can you repeat that again? I missed the first piece.
Sure. So is the solution just software on a phone connecting to cloud server? And then the second piece is what else is in the deployment?
Yeah, so it is. It is just software that's installed onto the device. It's as simple as that. We're not doing anything else heavy. the deployment. If you have an existing MDM product, you can actually use that MDM product to actually do checks to see whether or not this app is installed, and if not, you can actually push it out and provision it through your existing MDM solution. Or, as I said, if you're looking to evaluate it, or even if you don't have an MDM product, it can be a standalone, as I demonstrated, and we can simply import email addresses. You can manually create them, and it will actually send out an activation email with a QR code or a link that the user uses to do the initial configuration. And after that, it's as simple as what you saw from an end-user perspective.
Awesome. Steve, can you go through just who your main competitors are and then how Checkpoint's differentiating from them?
Sure. So there's really not a lot of competition in this space. Probably the closest competitor to this, which has a bit of an incomplete solution today, is like Lookout. I've seen them come up, but they're missing pieces around it, some of the advanced intelligence associated with our solution set. And some of the solutions also do not necessarily cover both iOS and Android. Some of them may have one versus another.
Great. All
Any other
right.
questions? Great questions.
Yeah, I agree.
So I'll just throw that one slide back up again. I thank everyone. If there are no other questions, I thank everyone for taking some time out of their day to learn about this, and I'm happy to follow up. We can do, as we said, the evals, or we can have more face-to-face conversations about your own organization and what the needs are through meetings as well. Happy to do either.
Yeah, that's a great point. And then just reminding everybody that the session was recorded, and we'll be sending it out within the next day or two so that you can share it with anyone in your organization that you think would benefit from hearing this content. So if that being said, if there are no further questions at this time, I want to wish everybody a great rest of your afternoon. Thanks again to our presenters, and we look forward to speaking with you all soon. Have a great day, everybody.
Thanks, Lauren.